want to talk a little bit about soldering a joint now. And the proper solder to use is the one I prefer is either 50-50 or 40-60 tin to lead. I happen to have the 40-60 here, and I like it. It worked well for me. And what you want to do is you want to tin your soldering iron really well and try to get all these impurities off of it. This one's going to need a little bit more cleaning yet, so it'll probably do, but let me work on it. This is a 45 watt iron. You don't want to go any smaller than a 45 watt. The iron won't carry the heat, it won't melt the solder properly, so try to get you at least a 45 watt iron. A little higher. They have adjustable irons and they work great, so just look at that. You want a good coating of solder on your tip. Okay. She's tinning up pretty good. Sling off the excess and we should be good to go. First thing you want to do with your wiring, your individual wires, is strip off a little piece of wiring, twist them, twist the braids together. I'll do this a couple of times for you. And you want to tin your connections. So what you want to do is get all that solder. See how it's sucked up into the braids of the wire? I'll do another one. See, it sucked right into the braids. Now that wire is ready to solder onto your pot or your output jack or whatever you need. Now you've got a starting point now. You've got a starting point for your soldering process. So these two wires are ready to go. I don't consider myself an expert by any means, but the hardest thing to me is to hold in what you're soldering still and trying to get the connection good. But you want to get your solder in place, get your wire. Say I'm going to solder this one to the top of the pot here. Let's get a little solder down there. Get it going. Okay. That's a good solder puddle right there. Now just heat that up. Get your wire in there. Let it harden before you move it. Now you got a pretty decent connection. A little bit too much solder on that particular one, but it'll work. If you're going to attach a lot of grounds to your pots, which you normally should, you got enough solder there to do it with. Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you how to connect a wire up to one of the leads, one of the terminals. If you make sure your iron is still tinned, slip your wire that you're going to solder into the terminal spot. Let me get positioned here. Just a little solder, it don't take much. Oops, I let it go. Sometimes all your soldering's done, you got your pickups hooked up, you know, your output jack is installed, everything's in there, but you don't get any sound. So what could have happened? There's a couple of things that could happen, and this might help you. Make sure that your solder connections are good, that they're not what they call a cold joint. You want them to be kind of shiny on top. Make sure that you're connected to the right terminals, for the pots. Also on the output jacks, make sure you have the right terminals. There's 2 terminals and a ground for these things, and just make sure you solder to the right terminal correctly, and it should play. The only other possibility you might have is a bad pot or a bad capacitor, as you're soldering it, or a loose capacitor or something. So just check it. Make sure everything's tight before you install it. Put it in, and it should play good.